Atticus. Welcome back to another installment of Aw/No Sleep. Today, we have one from Bad Andy the Red. Title! I work for a strange logistics company, and I wish I never found out what we were shipping. Ooh. Quick announcement to everybody. Instead of releasing a video every single day, I'm going to try to release a video every other day so I can give you better quality videos. We're going to try it for a while and see how it works out. With that being said, please like and subscribe. Let's get into it. It started with that strange email I received. It was some kind of job listing. It promised a straightforward payday, just logging and moving freight. It sounded good and was something I had experience in, so it seemed like an ideal match for the kind of work I needed. I had been recently laid off from my previous warehouse job, and the hours at the part-time gig I picked up afterward were abysmal. So, when the particular offer came from a company called PT Shipping and Logistics, a name I've never come across before, I didn't hesitate. The opportunity to get back to good-paying work was too appealing to pass up. I applied and I didn't expect much to happen right away. But later that same afternoon, my phone buzzed with an email notification. The subject line read, PT Warehouse Position, and my heart skipped a beat as I looked. The message was brief yet promising. They wanted to discuss the role further. The salary mentioned nearly made my jaw drop. It was nearly 3 times what I was making at my previous job. It felt almost unreal, but I tempered some of my initial excitement when I considered there must be some kind of catch. Still, I decided to go in for the interview and learn more about the details behind such an enticing offer. The address led me to an industrial park on the edge of town. I pulled up to a nondescript gray building with only a small placard reading PT by the entrance. No windows, just concrete walls and a loading dock around the back. The parking lot was nearly empty, just 3 other cars despite it being the middle of a workday. I arrived about 15 minutes early for my interview. As I approached the entrance, an odd feeling of dizziness struck me. Something in the air, maybe. I hoped there were no fumes or anything leaking out somewhere. I looked back at the door and it buzzed open before I could even reach for the handle. "You must be the applicant," a voice called from inside. A tall, thin man in a gray jumpsuit stood just beyond the threshold. "Right on time. We appreciate punctuality." I introduced myself properly and extended my hand. He simply turned and gestured for me to follow. The interior was nothing like I expected. Instead of the bustling warehouse I had imagined, the space was eerily quiet. A few fluorescent lights flickered overhead, illuminating rows of shipping containers and large wooden crates. No moving forklifts, no workers, just silence. "Where is everyone?" I asked, my voice echoing slightly. "Shift change," the man replied without turning around. "You'll be working nights. Fewer distractions that way." We reached a small office at the end of a long corridor. Inside sat an old man behind a metal desk, his gray hair cropped short, his posture rigid even while seated. The nameplate on his desk read, PT Supervisor Matt Branson. "This the new guy?" he asked, not bothering to look up from his paperwork. "Yes, sir, for the night position," the thin man replied before disappearing back down the hallway, leaving me alone with a man who I presumed would be my boss. "Sit," Matt said fiercely, glancing up. His eyes were hard, calculating, like he was assessing a piece of equipment rather than a person. I sat in the chair opposite of him. I started to introduce myself. "Thank you for the opportunity. My name is..." But he cut me off. "I know your name, and I know that you are thankful for a job. Here's how this works. I'm going to get right to the point. Lay out what is expected, and that will be your chance to either take it or leave it." I was surprised by the bluntness of my apparent interview, but I nodded my head and he continued. "You show up at 10 p.m. sharp. You load what needs loading. You unload what needs unloading. You don't ask any questions about the cargo. You don't open anything. Ever." I hesitated, flustered by his tone. "Okay, but what exactly will I be?" "Handling specialized merchandise for high-end clients," he interrupted again. "That's all you need to know. The pay is good because discretion is mandatory. Got it?" "Sure thing, boss man," I replied with a slight smirk, trying to mask my unease. His expression didn't change. "This isn't a joke, new guy. Break protocol and there will be consequences. Understood?" I nodded, swallowing hard. The smirk faded from my face. "Crystal clear." "Good. I will assume that is a yes then. Welcome aboard." Matt slid a form from across his desk. "Sign here, please. The rest of the paperwork can wait for later. You start tonight." I scanned the document quickly. It was an unusually lengthy confidential agreement. My pen hovered over the signature line as a voice in my head screamed that something wasn't right. The whole "don't ask questions about what we're shipping" screamed of something illegal. But then I thought about my empty bank account, my overdue rent, and I signed. "Welcome to PT," Matt said without enthusiasm. He stood up and gestured for me to follow him. "I'll give you a quick tour." The warehouse was larger than it appeared from outside, with zones marked by colored tape on the concrete floor. Matt pointed to different areas with minimal explanation. Inbound, outbound, staging, processing. Each section contained identical black shipping containers with no markings except for small barcodes. "What's in those?" I asked, gesturing to a row of containers. Matt's eyes narrowed and I realized my mistake. "Right, sorry," I mumbled apologetically. They really did take the confidentiality of the cargo seriously. As we walked toward the back, I noticed a large metal door with a keypad lock. Unlike the rest of the facility, this door had warning signs. Authorized personnel only, and environmental controls in effect. "What's that area?" I couldn't help asking. Matt paused, as if assessing what he should say. "Storage," Matt said flatly. He squared his shoulders and turned to face me directly, his weathered face suddenly severe in the harsh fluorescent light. "Listen closely, because I'm only going to say this once. There are a few strict rules here at PT. Not guidelines, not suggestions, rules. Break them and you're gone. No warnings, no second chances." I nodded, suddenly aware of how quiet the massive warehouse was. I still thought it was odd that no one else was around. "Rule number 1. Matt raised a finger. Never, under any circumstances, open any of the boxes or shipping containers. I don't care if you hear noises coming from inside. I don't care if it starts leaking something. I don't care if the manifest says it contains gold bullion and the lock falls off in your hand. You don't open anything. If something is already open, you call me immediately." His eyes held mine, searching for a hint of defiance or misunderstanding. I nodded again, feeling a cold knot forming in my stomach. "Rule number 2, he continued, raising another finger. "All freight processing must be completed on schedule every night. The manifest will be on your workstation, and everything listed must be moved and prepared before the end of the shift. No exceptions." A muscle in his jaw twitched. "If the work falls behind, breaks and lunches will be skipped. I've worked double shifts before, and I can assure you it's not pleasant." He walked a few paces, gesturing for me to follow. We passed by a row of strange equipment I couldn't identify. Machines with dials and gauges that looked medical in nature rather than industrial. "Rule number 3. Maintain complete radio silence unless absolutely necessary. The equipment we use is sensitive to certain frequencies. Use the intercom system only if you urgently need to communicate with another worker." I glanced around, noticing for the first time the small black intercom boxes mounted at intervals along the walls. "Rule number 4, Matt continued, his voice dropping slightly. "Some areas of the warehouse are temperature controlled. The thermostats are preset. Do not adjust them for any reason, even if it feels unbearably cold or hot. The merchandise requires specific conditions. When I say cold, I mean cold. You might want to make sure you have a jacket or something warm. You're going to need it." We reached a metal door with a biometric scanner beside it. Matt placed his palm on the scanner and a green light flashed. "Rule number 5, he said, his tone becoming even more serious, if that was possible. "At exactly 5 a.m., an alarm will sound. When you hear it, no matter what you're doing, no matter how urgent the task seems, you will immediately proceed outside through the emergency exit doors. Everyone must exit the building during this time. It's the only mandatory break of your shift, and it lasts precisely 15 minutes, not 14, not 16. "What's that about?" I asked before I could stop myself. Matt's expression darkened. That's the company performing system checks. Nothing for you to worry about. He stepped closer, his weathered face just inches from mine. But understand this. If you're still inside after that alarm, I can't guarantee your safety. The way he said it sent ice through my veins. Not a threat, but a genuine warning. Whatever it was must be legitimately dangerous. I tried to ignore the sinking feeling I was getting and nodded my head. Got it, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Outside at 5 a.m. Matt nodded once, seemingly satisfied with my response, and he continued. Rule 6 concerns dealing with strangers or intruders on the premises. Should you detect anyone lingering here without proper authorization, you are to detain them if possible. If not, contact me immediately so I can alert our security lead. I know you might have reservations, so let me dispel them now. We are not engaging in any illegal activities here. Despite the particular hours and need for discretion, PT Shipping operates as a legitimate business. We own this building outright and possess all necessary business licenses. Our discretion protects our client, and Mr. Jaspin's work demands it, as does ours. As such, this is private property. Trespassing is strictly forbidden. Is that clear? I nodded briskly, suppressing the torrent of questions swirling in my mind, realizing it was unwise to voice them under this intense glare. He interpreted my silence as understanding and continued. Good, that's it. Keep to your job. Don't ask questions and get paid well. Now for your workstation. He led me to a small desk tucked between tall shelving units. Computer terminal clipboard and a handheld scanner sat waiting. Next to them was a gray uniform with PT embroidered on the breast pocket. You'll work alone most nights, Matt explained. Occasionally there's another handler on shift, but don't count on the company. Handler? I repeated. Is that my job title? Matt's jaw tightened. Product handler. That's what you are. He checked his watch. I've got to go. Your first shift starts at 10 p.m. Don't be late. As he turned to leave, I noticed something strange. A dark stain on the concrete floor near one of the shipping containers. It looked like someone had tried to clean it up, but hadn't quite managed to remove it completely. One more thing, Matt called over his shoulder. Stay away from the containers marked with red tags. Those are priority shipments for Mr. Jaspin himself. I will handle those, and if I am unavailable, leave them unless absolutely necessary to get them out on time. With that, he disappeared through a side door, leaving me alone in the cavernous space. The silence was absolute now, broken only by the distant hum of what sounded like industrial refrigeration units. I picked up the gray uniform and examined it. Standard work clothes, but the material felt oddly stiff, almost like it had been starched beyond reason. My shift didn't start for hours, so I decided to head back home and force myself to get some sleep. It was going to be a long first night, and I had to get used to becoming a night owl. I did not sleep much, and I got back to work a few minutes before 10 p.m. The place was unnerving at night. The outside was barely lit, and I almost tripped several times just walking from the parking lot to the main building. I stepped in and saw that at least it was brighter inside. I made it to my workstation, and I saw a new inventory log. As I was reading it, I nearly dropped to the ground when someone tapped me on the shoulder and startled me. I spun around and saw a woman, mid-40s maybe, with prematurely gray hair pulled back in a severe bun that looked painfully tight. Dark circles hung beneath her eyes, and she regarded me with a clinical detachment that made me feel like a specimen under glass. "You must be the new guy," she said flatly with no introduction. She wore a dark jumpsuit and heavy steel-toed boots that looked like they could crush concrete. "Yep, that's me," I replied, trying to calm my racing pulse. "And you are?" She sighed as if my simple question had already exhausted her patience. "Jean, inventory lead." She glanced at my uniform, which I'd changed into before arriving. "At least you dress properly. The last new guy showed up in sneakers. Didn't last a week." The way she said it made me wonder what had happened to him, but I decided not to ask. "Matt gave you the rules?" She didn't wait for my confirmation before continuing. "Good, follow them to the letter. I've been here 7 years. There's a reason for that." Jean moved with an efficiency of motion that spoke of someone who never wasted energy. She pulled a tablet from a nearby shelf and tapped the screen a few times. "First truck is due soon," she said, checking her watch. "Your job is to help me unload it, check the manifests, and get everything sorted according to protocol." She handed me the tablet. "Tonight's a quiet one. Only 3 shipments. Not much to load up either. Pay attention because you'll be doing a lot of this by yourself in the near future, and because I don't like repeating myself." I nodded my head and examined the manifest. Most entries were coded with alphanumeric sequences that meant nothing to me, but the quantities and timestamps were clear enough. "What are we shipping exactly?" The question slipped out before I could stop myself. Jean's eyes flicked to mine, then away. She sighed again, deeper this time. "What did Matt tell you about questions?" Right. Sorry." "Look," she said, her voice dropping slightly. "I get it. You're new. You're curious. Natural human response." She leaned closer. "But trust me when I say curiosity is actively discouraged here, not just by management." Something in her tone sent a chill down my spine. Before I could respond, a buzzer sounded, indicating a truck had arrived at the loading dock. "That's our cue," Jean said, straightening up. "Follow me. Do exactly as I do. Nothing more, nothing less." We walked to the loading dock where a large black semi had backed up to the platform. Unlike any delivery truck I'd seen before, this one had no company logo, no dot numbers, nothing to identify it, just pure matte black, even the license plates. The driver remained in the cab, engine idling. Jean approached the back of the truck and entered a code onto the keypad. The rear doors swung open silently, revealing a cargo that seemed impossibly dark despite the loading dock's harsh lights. "Stand back," Jean instructed, positioning herself to the side of the opening. I did as told, watching as she pressed another button on the wall. A mechanical whirling filled the air, and a platform extended from the dock into the truck's interior. What happened next defied explanation. The darkness inside the truck seemed to ripple, like heat waves rising from asphalt on a scorching day. Then, as if pushed by invisible hands, 3 large containers slid out onto the platform. These weren't standard shipping crates. These were sleek black boxes about 7 feet long and 3 feet wide, with no visible handles or seams. Each bore only a barcode and a small digital display showing a temperature reading. 2 displayed a normal room temperature, but the third read -15 degrees Celsius. "That one goes to cold storage immediately," Jean said, pointing to the frigid container. "I'll handle it, you log the other 2. As she maneuvered the cold container onto a special cart, I approached the remaining boxes with the scanner in hand. The moment I got close, I felt a terrible ringing in my ears. Then an odd sort of buzzing, like a bee has flown down into my inner ear. I could have sworn I heard a faint scratching sound as well. I froze, scanner hovering in midair. "Problem?" Jean called from several feet away, her voice sharp. I thought I heard..." She was already frowning at me. "Nothing," I quickly stated, shaking my head. "Just getting used to the scanner." Jean's eyes narrowed slightly, lingering on me a moment too long. "Scan them and move on. We're on a schedule." I ran the scanner over the barcodes, trying to ignore the odd buzzing near the box. The scanner beeped confirmation, and the tablet in my other hand automatically updated with the shipping details. "Now what?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. "Now we move them to staging," Jean said, returning from cold storage. "Zone B for these. Follow me." I helped her push the cart with the 2 remaining containers through the warehouse. The wheels squeaked slightly on the concrete floor, the sound echoing in the cavernous space. As we rolled them into place, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were not the only ones there. "Listen," Jean said abruptly after we positioned the containers. She sighed, rubbing her temple with 2 fingers. "I usually don't bother with the new people. Most don't last. But you seem..." She paused, searching for the right word. "Less stupid than some. So I'm going to give you some advice." She looked around, ensuring we were truly alone. "When the 5 a.m. alarm sounds, be the first one out the door. Don't dawdle. Don't finish just one more thing. And whatever you do, don't look back at the building." I swallowed hard. "Why not?" "Because some things can't be unseen," she said flatly. and because I've outlasted 3 full crews by minding my own business and following protocol to the letter. You are here now and the pay is good. If you don't ask questions or get any ideas, you'll be fine. Everyone else that has been let go has done something stupid. Keep your head down and your mouth shut, and for your sake, everyone else's. The buzzing sound grew slightly louder. Jean didn't seem to notice, or was pretending not to. What's actually in these? I whispered, nodding toward the container. Jean's face hardened. You really don't listen, do you? But something in her expression shifted, almost imperceptibly. She leaned in close. The proud tailor deals in specialized merchandise. That's all you need to know. The proud tailor? I thought it was PT shipping and PT, she cut me off. The initials. Figure it out. She tapped her temple with one finger. Mr. Jaspin expects his shipments to arrive in perfect condition. Our job is to ensure that happens, nothing more. Before I could ask who Mr. Jaspin was, the intercom crackled to life. Jean, report to receiving. The second shipment is arriving early. It was Matt's voice, sounding groggy but no less irritable. Jean straightened immediately. Got it. She turned to me. Finish logging these 2, then meet me at the receiving dock. Don't touch anything else. With that, she strode away, her boots making barely any sound on the concrete floor. As I glanced at the manifest on the tablet, the description field for these containers simply read, Display units, fragile, temp sensitive. My hand hovered over the container's surface. No locks were visible, just a seam around the middle where it presumably opened. The rules were clear, never open anything, yet the curiosity in that moment was overwhelming. I started to get morbid ideas. What if this was some kind of human trafficking operation? The silhouette of the boxes was ghoulish. As I stared down at the box, my mind raced with more possibilities, and the desire to know grew stronger. Suddenly, the intercom crackled, breaking my morbid musings. New guy, where are you? Second shipment's waiting. Matt's voice echoed through the warehouse, impatience evident. I quickly tapped a response into the container's manifest, marking it as processed, and hurried towards receiving. Whatever was happening here, whatever was in those boxes, I needed more information before I did anything stupid. Jean's warning echoed in my mind. Curiosity was actively discouraged. Now I understood why. I arrived at the loading dock just as the next truck rumbled its way into the bay. This one appeared more typical than the first. Its worn exterior a familiar sight. Most of the freight was neatly packed into standard-style shipping containers, their metal sides marked with destination labels and handling instructions. The sight of these ordinary items eased the tension I felt earlier. Jean quickly scanned through the manifests, her eyes darting from line to line. Meanwhile, I maneuvered our small yellow forklift to offload the unassuming cargo. It was a few more hours of moving boxes and almost everything had been stowed away and logged properly. I was just finishing another trip when I heard a loud alarm sound. I noticed it was nearly 5 a.m., and I almost tripped over myself to run out of there. The loading bay lights pulsed in sync with the blaring siren, each flash amplifying the urgency in the air. I reached the door, breathless, just as Jean appeared at my side. Her pace was brisk, purposeful, and she kept her eyes locked on the exit, not sparing a single glance behind. We both pushed through the emergency exit door into the pre-dawn darkness. The cool morning air was nice, clearing the warehouse fog from my mind. Jean kept walking until she reached the edge of the parking lot, where she stopped and lit a cigarette with practiced motions. I followed, watching as a few other workers I hadn't seen during my shift emerged from different exits around the building. None of them looked at each other or at the building. All of them kept their eyes fixed on the ground or on distant points in the darkness. "You did good," Jean said as I approached, exhaling a cloud of smoke that hung in the still air. "Most newbies have to be reminded about the 5 a.m. drill." "What's really happening in there?" I whispered, unable to help myself despite all the warnings. Jean took another long drag and sighed heavily. "System maintenance," she said flatly, but there was something to her tone that suggested she didn't believe her own words. "That's bullshit, and you know it," I whispered, making sure none of the other workers could hear us. She turned to me, her eyes hard in the dim light of the parking lot lamps. Listen carefully. There are things that happen in this job that defy explanation. I've learned it's better for my sanity, safety, and continued employment to accept the official answers. A strange sound cut through the pre-dawn stillness. Something between a mechanical whine and a muffled scream. It seemed to come from inside the building, but it was unlike anything I'd ever heard before. Organic yet mechanical. Pained yet precise. I instinctively turned toward the sound. Jean's hand shot out, gripping my arm with surprising strength. "Don't," she hissed, her fingers digging into my flesh. "Don't go back. Don't even look back at the building during maintenance." I forced my gaze away, focusing instead on the cigarette between Jean's fingers. The ember glowed orange in the darkness, hypnotic in its simplicity. "How long have you worked here?" I asked, trying to distract myself from the sounds that continued to emanate from the building, the sounds that seemed to be growing in intensity. 7 years, 2 months, 16 days, she replied without hesitation. Longest anyone's lasted besides Matt. "Who is Mr. Jaspin? You mentioned him earlier." Jean's expression flickered with something that might have been fear. "The owner of the Proud Tailor. He visits occasionally to inspect special shipments." She took a final drag of her cigarette before crushing it under her boot. "If you ever see a tall, thin man in an expensive suit, stay out of his way. Don't speak unless spoken to. Don't make eye contact unless he initiates it. He likes to chat, and if he likes chatting with you, well, you might get the wrong kind of attention." I considered what she said and wondered why someone who owned a tailoring store would need a shipping operation like this. For a second, I laughed at the idea of the secret things in the boxes being knocked off jeans or other cheap clothes that were moving just to avoid customs and state taxes. Whatever was in those boxes, though, sure didn't feel like clothes. Another sound pierced the air, this one a high-pitched whine that made my teeth ache. Several of the other workers winced visibly, clutching their ears. One man standing close to the door suddenly fell to his knees, his face contorted in a silent scream. Then, as suddenly as it began, the sound stopped. A heavy silence fell over the parking lot, broken only by the distant call of an early bird and someone's ragged breathing. 1 minute left, Jean announced, checking her watch. "Everyone remember where you were working. We aren't done yet." I stared at her, a cold knot forming in my stomach. "Jean, what the hell is going on in there?" "Those sounds. They weren't machinery." She didn't answer, her eyes fixed on her watch. The other workers had formed a loose line near the doors, like actors waiting for their cue to return to stage. 30 seconds, Jean called out. I grabbed her arm. "I can't go back in there without knowing what—" 10 seconds, she interrupted, shaking off my grip and hissing back at me. "Get in line or they'll notice." The implication was clear. I hurried to join the others just as a different alarm sounded. 3 short beeps that seemed to signal the all clear. The workers filed back inside through the same doors they exited, their movements mechanical, rehearsed. Jean waited for me at the entrance. "Back to your station," she instructed. "Act normal. Whatever you think you heard, forget it." I followed her inside, fighting every instinct that screamed for me to run. The warehouse appeared exactly as we'd left it. Containers neatly arranged, equipment powered down, paperwork stacked on desks. But something had changed. The air felt heavier now, charged with an energy that made my hair on my arms stand on end. As we walked back to the station, I noticed something on the floor that hadn't been there before. A fine white powder, almost like plaster dust, trailing from the door marked "Authorized Personnel Only" to the loading dock. And near one of the containers we'd processed earlier, a small dark stain that looked disturbingly like blood. The rest of the shift passed in a blur of activity. We loaded a small outgoing truck, and for some reason Jean had me log the shipment but wouldn't let me help load the boxes on board. By the time 7 a.m. rolled around, we were done and our replacements had arrived. 2 stone-faced men who acknowledged us with nothing more than curt nods. I followed Jean to the employee break room, where she retrieved a worn leather bag from her locker. "First night's always the hardest," she said, not unkindly. "You did okay." "Jean," I said, lowering my voice even though we were alone. I can't keep working here without some answers. Those containers and those sounds during the maintenance, something is seriously wrong with all this, isn't there? Stop, she cut me off sharply. Just stop right there. Jean's eyes darted to the security camera in the corner of the locker room. She grabbed my arm with surprising strength and pulled me closer. Not here, she whispered, her breath hot against my ear. Meet me at Denny's on Highway 16, 1 hour. With that, she shouldered her bag and walked out, leaving me standing alone in the sterile locker room. I stared at my reflection in the mirror above the sink, pale face, dark circles forming under my eyes, a haunted look I didn't recognize. Just what the hell had I gotten myself into? Awesome first part, man. Really, really dig it. I'm locked in, ready to go, ready to see what part 2 is. Hope everybody enjoyed it. Go ahead and head over to Bad Andy the Red over on his Reddit page and let him know what you thought about the story. Appreciate each and every one of you. I am the Midgridmaso. Farewell. I'm locked in, ready to go.